moved tonight from dropping out of high school to getting his doctorate, now taking over as the new Clay County Sheriff.
Will Akin sat down with 41 Action News anchor Lindsay Shively to hear how past hardships now shape his perspective.
Newly elected Sheriff Will Akin is not new to the Clay County Sheriff's Office.
We actually moved here December 1st of 2012.
But he has shared glimpses of a much longer journey growing up in California.
And on Thanksgiving, you tweeted a picture of you and your brother. The last time we shared a McDonald's meal in a car in a parking lot was 36 years ago. He was 6 and I was 9. We were homeless and living in our mom's station wagon. Look at us now.
We will go through hard times, but it's not always going to be hard. And so I wanted to share it. Growing up, went through a lot of hardship. And growing up, it was really just me, him, and my mom. I can't even comprehend how hard life was for her.
I remember sleeping in the car and then eating out of the garbage cans back of stores and stuff like that.
His brother Robert is now a custodian with the Clay County Sheriff's Office, hired, Akin says, by the previous sheriff.
We went through so much that even today, in our 40s, we're still very close. Extremely close. My brother and I, we didn't realize that we were homeless. I do have very unfond memories of, her crying because my brother and I were eating and she couldn't eat.
One year, when their mom told them they couldn't afford Christmas, they found stuck in their front door a tumbleweed and inspiration. An anonymous donation soon followed to help buy presents and food.
Instead of saying Christmas tree, I said, oh, how about we just sing Old Tumbleweed? So we decorated.
I got my first job when I was 12 years old. And I was climbing palm trees with a chainsaw about the size of me.
I know he was really young, taking care of me and my mom and stuff, being my brother, but also being a dad at the same time.
I dropped out of high school when I was 16 because I thought it was more important to help support my mom and my brother.
Take me back to 16 and that decision and what life was like.
Man, I hated my teenage years. I hated it. The neighborhood that we grew up in was not a nice neighborhood. I finally realized I have to get out of here. Otherwise, I don't know where my future lies. And so that's when I got my GED and I joined the Army.
He says he continued his education while he served and during his law enforcement career. And in frames in his office, his GED, and now his doctorate.
Do you think what you experienced formed how you serve?
Absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because I understand what it's like to live under those circumstances and conditions.
He also teaches at a local university.
There's a tremendous amount of dialogue about, recent events, and I actually challenge my students to talk about the things that are so hard, so difficult to talk about.
Last year, after the death of George Floyd, we saw nationwide and locally protests, calls for change, calls for racial justice, racial equity, and criticism of law enforcement and a lack of trust. What is your message to the Black community, to everyone in Clay County?
Especially now moving forward, this is not a secret organization. I invite members of the public, regardless of the color of skin, to come in and learn more about us.
Have there been any changes or evaluations or examining things over the last year?
Oh, absolutely. But again, we don't wait until a critical incident happens. We are constantly reviewing our policies.
Has anything changed recently?
Yes. So one of the biggest things is chokeholds. And with all the input from our federal partners and all of our regional partners, we have changed the standard of when you can apply a chokehold to when lethal use of force is warranted. That's the highest level. Now, we don't want to completely remove that option because sometimes when you're in that situation, you have to survive, but you have to do it in the best way possible.
Akin described different techniques and said they are also assessing that training.
What would you say to someone who would say chokeholds should not be used ever?
I would have a conversation with them and I would explain to them scenarios. If my option was between a chokehold or using my firearm, but I'm in a better position, better advantage point to use a chokehold, I know that we can save them a lot easier than shooting them.
Akin says transparency will be a priority.
Because the more everyone knows about our organization and our community, the better off we are.
Something he believes applies to his own story, too.
No matter where you've come from, that should never dictate where you can go.
Lindsay Shively, 41 Action News.